Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. Regina Ip is appointed convener of the incoming Executive Council. Power is restored to the Western New Territories after the biggest blackout in a decade. And 1,000 people were killed in a strong earthquake in Afghanistan. Incoming Chief Executive John Lee has retained 9 incumbents for his Executive Council. They include Regina Ip, who becomes convener, replacing Bernard Chan, who was leaving the cabinet. Chloe Fong reports.
After serving as an executive councillor for the past 10 years under Leung Chun-in and Carrie Lam, New People's Party chairwoman Regina Ip has been named as convener of the cabinet of the city's new leader, John Lee.
The role of an executive councillor is to give advice to the chief executive and to help explain policies. And I have a widespread experience of government work as well as legislative work, so I think I am well qualified.
Ip is the first person from a political party to take up the position, but said there's no need for her to leave her party. Lee has retained Martin Liao, Tommy Chen, Jeffrey Lam, Kenneth Lau, Asa Lee, Ronnie Term, Lam Chin Choi, Joseph Yam in his executive council. The new additions include Elisa Chen, a senior member of his campaign team, former Health Minister Ko Wing-man, Hanson University Chairman Moses Chen, and banker Margaret Lin. 3 lawmakers drawn as new members. DAB Vice Chairman Gary Chen replaces Horace Chen, who will be the Deputy Justice Secretary. And Federation of Trade Unions President Stanley Ng will represent unions, succeeding Wong Kwok King. Insurance sector lawmaker Chan Kim-por also becomes a cabinet member. He said he will resign as chairman of the Legislative Council's Finance Committee. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Power has been restored to the northwestern New Territories after a blaze at a cable bridge in Yeung triggered a massive blackout. But energy supplier CLP Power urged people to use less electricity while repair work takes place. Macy Mock reports.
It took firefighters 19 minutes to extinguish a blaze which gutted a transmission cable bridge in Yeung last night. But the fire caused Hong Kong's worst blackout in a decade. About 160,000 households in New Territories West were forced to sweat it out in the dark overnight. The fire damaged 3 high-voltage cables that supplied electricity to Yeung, Tin Shui Wai and Tuen Mun. Many residents were trapped in lifts by the sudden outage, but hospitals switched to their backup power supply to keep operations normal. About 170 people spent the night in temporary shelters. 14 schools in Tin Shui Wai suspended classes today. CLP Power said electricity was fully restored at around 8 a.m. But Chief Corporate Development Officer Quinn Strong warned that the supply could still be unstable. She apologized to affected households and urged people to use less electricity while repair work continues.
Our power supply security is getting a bit lower as compared with the normal, supply arrangement. So if they are able to save the energy a bit, it can help us in maintaining the power supply to them before we are able to fully restore the supply in this area. I think it will take about a few days.
Environment Undersecretary Su Chin-wan said the power company has to submit a preliminary report in 3 days to explain how it can prevent a similar incident. Security Minister Chris Tang said the cause of the fire is still unknown, and there's no evidence that it was started deliberately. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
A veteran electrical engineer who has consulted on government projects believes the accident could have been prevented.
What we usually try to do in this kind of instance is one, the first approach is to enhance the maintenance, monitoring, and the testing of the system. So if you enhance the maintenance, check it more often, and also keep on monitoring all those system parameters, then we may be able to predict some incident before it actually happens.
Low said another approach is to implement the smart grid system, where data is collected by sensors and analyzed with the help of artificial intelligence. Hong Kong recorded 1,447 COVID cases today. Health officials predict a rise as 1,323 of the new infections were locally transmitted.
We expect the cases will going up and may exceed 2,000 in the near future. Still, the most important is to monitor the hospital admission figures, severe and death cases. So far, we have not observed any obvious increase in the proportion in the actual number.
The Department of Health suspects that the Sunrise Diagnostic Center's laboratory on the Hong Kong side of the bridge to Macau was contaminated when it returned test results that were higher than normal. The testing contractor yesterday reported 136 positive and indeterminate PCR test results. But a second test showed only 12 were either positive or indeterminate. The laboratory has since been disinfected. Severe floods have continued to plague southern and eastern provinces on the mainland. More than 100 rivers overflowed their banks. Chloe Feng reports.
Guangdong province upgraded its flood warnings overnight as rivers overflowed and water levels rose to their highest in 107 years after record rainfalls. Shaoguan was among the worst affected. There were dramatic rescues of people from the ravaging waters, which inundated houses and swept away cars. Residents in low-lying neighborhoods were urged to move to higher ground. There was some respite this morning when the rain eased and the water level dipped, allowing workers to clear mud from the streets. But the situation remained grim in Yingde, 100 kilometers downstream on the Beijiang River. The water level this morning reached 36 meters, the highest since 1915. At least 4,000 residents were evacuated. The Ministry of Water Resources reported serious flooding from more than 100 rivers in the past 2 days and warned that the danger will remain as more rainfall is expected in coming days. But the rain is expected to bring some relief to drought-hit areas in Henan and Shandong provinces, which are experiencing extremely high temperatures. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Overseas, a powerful earthquake has rocked eastern Afghanistan, killing 1,000 people and injuring 1,500. Helicopters were sent to Paktika province to vary people for treatment. The remote mountain area near the border with Pakistan was hardest hit by the quake, which had a magnitude of 6.1. Many victims were taken to clinics and treated outside because of a lack of space. The tremor is expected to worsen Afghanistan's economic crisis. Western governments cut aid and credit to the country after the Taliban ended a 20-year U.S.-led occupation. A U.S. congressional committee investigating the riot at the Capitol in January last year has focused on former President Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the result of the 2020 election.
When Donald Trump used the power of the presidency to try to stay in office after losing the election to Joe Biden, he broke that sacred and centuries-old covenant. Whether his actions were criminal will ultimately be for others to decide. But what he did was, without a doubt, unconstitutional. It was unpatriotic, and it was fundamentally un-American.
The Republican House Speaker of Arizona, Rusty Bowers, was among election officials who testified that they were threatened by Trump loyalists after refusing to say he had won. Bowers said he was accused of being a pedophile, a pervert, and a corrupt politician. Extreme right-wingers stormed Congress in a desperate bid to stop lawmakers from declaring Biden the winner. There have been calls for a criminal investigation into Trump over his role in the insurrection, which stunned the United States and the world. The government in Bangladesh is rushing to rescue millions of people stranded by killer floods in the northeast of the country. About 300,000 people have been moved to safer areas, but nearly 10 million more are said to be marooned near their homes. Food, clean water, and medicines are being sent to the victims. The floods, which have been blamed on climate change, have claimed at least 70 lives in Bangladesh and a similar number in neighboring India. The Hang Seng Index has ended a three-day rally and closed 2.6% lower. The tech index slumped amid concerns of another clampdown on the tech sector. Some investors fear online drug sales by third-party pharmaceutical e-commerce firms may be banned following a public consultation. JD Health plunged 14.8%, while rival Alibaba Health sank 13.8%. Kuaishou dropped 4.1%, as mainland regulators introduced new rules for live streaming services. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng ended the day down by 551 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Alibaba lost $4.30, Tencent down $11, while Meituan was down $9.60. Koolearn was up $1.88, while AIA Insurance was down $2.80. Forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro's at 8.25, a pound sterling at 9.61, and the Australian dollar at 5.41. And over in Europe, the London FTSE is currently down 92 points. Carrie Lam has carried out the last public event of her term, opening the Hong Kong Palace Museum. The outgoing chief executive was joined by Palace Museum Director Wang Shu-dong and West Kowloon Cultural District Authority Chairman Henry Tang to cut the ribbon. Former Chief Executive Donald Tsang and his wife also attended the ceremony. Carrie Lam announced the construction of the museum when she was Chief Secretary in 2016. She said opening the new attraction added luster to her 42-year civil service career, and that she will be a fan of the museum for life. Tickets, meanwhile, have been selling fast for the Hong Kong Palace Museum, which will feature more than 1,000 masterpieces when it opens next Saturday. The collection includes over 160 Grade I national treasures from Beijing. Joanna Ho reports.
An insight into the life of a Qing emperor can be gleaned at the Hong Kong Palace Museum. Visitors can glimpse at 166 Grade I national treasures sent from the Palace Museum in Beijing. The items, including imperial relics, will be displayed to the public from next Saturday. Like people nowadays, emperors and women in the Qing court groomed themselves on waking up. But Qing mirrors were exclusive, like this one, which has a watch with an elephant sculpture. On special occasions, like birthdays, emperors wore festive robes. Museum Deputy Director Daisy Wang believes that this robe from the Qianlong period was worn by the emperor as it contained abrasions. These two historical relics in Gallery 2 are among over 1,000 exhibits in the museum's 9 galleries. Most of the artifacts in the museum will be on show for a year at least, but here in Gallery 8, exhibits will be rotated every month and then returned to the Palace Museum in Beijing later this year.
paintings and calligraphy from the Jin, Tang, Song, and Yuan dynasties in this gallery are extremely sensitive to light and have to be displayed in darkness. They'll be sent back to Beijing for conservation later this year. Gallery 9 includes 13 exhibits from the Louvre in Paris. Museum Director Louis Ng said another 100 sensitive works will arrive this week. He added that around half the tickets for July admission and over 80% of the $120 tickets have already been snapped up. Joanna Ho, HKIBC.
On to the weather now. Fine and very hot tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 28 and 33 degrees. The searing heat will continue into the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good night.